What is good, y'all? It's your boy Mixtape Moth. So Kendrick finally responds after a few weeks of silence. Now there were those folks who assumed that Kendrick would not drop a diss track to Drake. Rather, he would, release an album in May and there would be diss tracks layered through it. But K. Dot did strike unexpectedly on this Tuesday morning with this track Euphoria that was produced by Cardo, Johnny Giuliano, Soundwave, and Young Exclusive. I want to talk about the beat real quick. There were actually three separate instrumentals that Kendrick is rapping over. So the fans of the multiple beat shifts, they will likely love what was done here instrumentally. Like if you loved what you heard on that recent Schoolboy Q album, you'll definitely dig this. Now, for the first part of this diss track, Kendrick is rapping over a smooth Teddy Pendergrass sample. Now I can sort of understand the vibe Kendrick was likely going for here. He probably wanted to start out on a vintage, elegant note and then get on a more aggressive one. So in a strange way, it was giving some Ghostface Killer vibes, except that K. Dot was rapping kind of low energy. And that is going to lose the attention of some listeners for sure, especially those who wanted some high energy out the gate. But on this part, Kendrick said, them superpowers getting neutralized. I can only watch in silence. The famous actor we once knew is looking paranoid and now spiraling. You moving just like a degenerate, heavy antic. It's feeling distasteful. Okay, so here he was doing some psychoanalyzing on Drake, claiming that Drake's powers are waning and that he is down bad and looking desperate, doing these predictable things to get attention, which is a fair assumption that one could make. Kendrick then says, you're not a rap artist, you a scam artist with hopes of being accepted. So he is speaking on this narrative that Drake is not of the culture and that he is pretending to be someone who he's not. And we've heard this argument over the years from many rappers, Rick Ross being the most recent on his diss track to Drake. Kendrick also said, I make music that electrify him, you make music that pacify them. Again, this is Kendrick trying to highlight that Drake only makes music for the mindless masses and that he has no real deep electrifying connection. And this is straight out of the Most Def playbook about Drake somehow not being hip hop and that he's just pop. But Kendrick ends the first portion of this track saying, no, you a master manipulator and a habitual liar too, but don't tell no lie about me and I won't tell the truth about you. So that is very clever, but it does also suggest that Kendrick is holding back somewhat and that he's still in this warning shot mode. And after this, we get an aggressive TDE style trap beat with a splash of G-Funk, and it's a high energy, a banger for sure. And K-Dot rapped, his daddy a killer. He wanna be Junior. They must have forgot this shit that they done. Dementia must run in his family, but let it get shaky. I'll park his son. And that last line was super wild. Kendrick claiming that he's gonna park Drake's son with the Parkinson's wordplay. Now that's probably his most ruthless and crazy bar on here. But the lines before it were saying that Drake's rap dad, Jay Prince, is the real killer, but his son Junior isn't, and that his son Junior is the wannabe version of his dad, and that Drake is like a junior wannabe, so he's a wannabe of a wannabe. I actually thought this was a pretty solid and valid point to make since Drake is so deeply connected to mob ties and screams mob ties everywhere he goes. K. Dot then has a witty reply to the whole Tupac AI track where he says, somebody had told me that you got a ring. On God, I'm ready to double the wage. I'd rather do that than let a Canadian dude make Pac turn in his grave. So it's Compton versus Canada. I mean, which is going to win? Kendrick then takes aim at J. Cole and also at Drake in regards to them being part of this big three with, it's three goats left and I seen two of them kissing and hugging on stage. I love them to death. And in 8 bars, I'll explain that phrase. Yeah, Cole and Aubrey know I'm a selfish dude. The crown is heavy. I'll pray they my real friends. If not, I'm YNW Melly. I thought this was super witty, especially if you know that YNW Melly murdered his friends. But again, it does seem like K Dot is conflicted just a tad because he's saying he prays they are my real friends. But Kendrick, I'm pretty sure you know that Drake's not your real friend. J. Cole is likely your real friend, but Drake, he's not. Kendrick does bring up Pusha T with some witty wordplay on lines like, yeah, F all that pushing P, let me see you push a T. You better off spinning again on him. You think about pushing me. So I dug the slick wordplay and boastful braggadocio. But then he does go back into this warning shot kind of territory with bars like, we ain't got to get personal. This is a friendly fade. You should keep it that way. So I don't entirely get it. One minute he's talking about parking Drake's son. Then the next he's saying we don't have to get personal. This sounds very J. Cole inspired. But then Kendrick lets the cat out of the bag and admits that he is fully a Drake hater, stating, it's always been about the love and hate. Now, let me say I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way you talk, the way you walk. I hate the way that you dress. And it appears this is based off of DMX's Breakfast Club interview where DMX was taking shots at Drake, saying that he hates everything about him. And if true, if that's what it's in reference to, then this is likely going to score points for some who view Drake as like the antithesis of all things hip hop. But for me, I think it is straight up hater energy that I never really think is that cool. Like, who wants to admit they're a hater? I don't know. And Kendrick, he dislikes the way Drake dresses, but Kendrick is really one of the last people that I think we could take fashion advice from. And respectfully, I'm not saying that Drake's fits are crazy either, but Kendrick's drip game, it's not all that. But then Kendrick does have a line saying, I'm what the culture feeling. Again, you know, he is driving that point home that Drake is foreign to the real culture and that he can only be appreciated by outsiders and casuals. And I'm sure there's some folks who are going to eat this up and it may resonate with them, while others are just going to see it as overused talking point. But I did find the following Kendrick bars to be super hard hitting and likely to sting Drake somewhat. How many more black features till you finally feel that you are black enough? Man, that was brutal and definitely a hard double entendre. Kendrick then goes into album talk mode, saying that he has classic albums while Drake has none. And while I get it, I don't think that's entirely true, although it is clear that Kendrick has more classics than Drake, although I do think one can make the strong argument for Take Care and maybe So Far Gone as being Drake classic. But it would be hard to argue that Kendrick doesn't have 3 classics. I also thought the following bar from Kendrick was really dope. Headshot for the year, you better walk around like Daft Punk. Kendrick then goes on to get a little comical, suggesting that Drake really doesn't like women and that when I see you standing by Sexy Red, I believe you see 2 bad bitches. Kendrick also exposes Drake for allegedly putting a cease and desist on the single Like That, which is super corny of Drake if true. Then Kendrick goes the Pusha T route, suggesting that Drake is somehow not a good dad. You know, the father lines are going to get personal in rap beef. And, you know, if it's true for Drake, then it will sting or will hurt. But are we just to assume that Drake's this awful, horrible dad while Kendrick is such a pure dad? Kendrick then calls out Drake for having ghostwriters, and he also acknowledges that people just hate on the West Coast. And I think there's some truth to both, you know, as there is definitely a bit of a Southern bias and a West Coast bias that does exist in hip hop. And I get where he's coming from. It definitely occurred back in the day, more so. And towards the end of this track, Kendrick is poking fun at some Canadian gang words and accents, and it's a little funny, but I didn't particularly care for the vocal inflections on this part. And finally, At the very end, Kendrick states, "We don't want to hear you say the N word no more." It's funny, and some folks are definitely going to agree with him, but it also does sound a bit inspired from Rick Ross's recent diss track. So overall, I feel this was a solid diss record, and I think it's exactly what Kendrick needed to do to show that he wasn't ducking Drake after Drake had done 2 back-to-back disses. But did Kendrick deliver any body bag blows? Not really. He did get disrespectful at times, but not really disrespectful enough to be considered body bag material. However, there were other moments where he seemed to be content just firing some warning shots. Actually, about 3 lines that could be clearly interpreted as warning shots. So, for those listeners out there who wanted more aggressive, overtly disrespectful bars, then you will likely feel that Kendrick did not go hard enough. And I get that to some extent, but you also have to understand that Kendrick was doing a little psychological warfare here too, while also being pretty lyrical. And also trying to depict Drake as this outsider, an actor who is spiraling out of control, falling off, and also someone who is gay, not black enough, and some other things too. So yeah, I don't have a dog in this fight, and I try to be objective for both. But if I had to choose which track I just preferred to listen to more so far, it would be Drake's Push Up. I didn't love all the Kendrick vocal inflections, but I will give him his props for experimenting with different flows. And at the end of the day, Kendrick did what he needed to do as far as responding to get the internet off his back. And I think some of the jabs stuck. But at the same time, there were a lot of themes that have seemed to have been covered before by artists like Ross, Meek Mill, and Pusha T. Although it is clear that Kendrick's versions were better written and wittier than what Ross and Meek Mill had for him. Overall, I would give this diss track a 3.5 mics, where I'd probably put the Drake push-up songs at 3.8. So I'd give this slight edge to Drake so far. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out. As always, it's peace and blessings. One.